The morning air was cold enough to bite. Frost covered the ground, and mist curled over the hills like ghosts waking from sleep. Inside a small ranch house at the edge of a forgotten town, Samuel Harrow stepped out onto his porch with a steaming mug of coffee. He had lived alone for years. No wife, no kids, just him, the cattle, and the endless hum of wind through the fields. To him, silence was peace until that morning. A faint knock broke the stillness. Soft, hesitant. He turned toward the sound, expecting maybe a lost traveler or one of the farmhands come early. But when he opened the door, his breath caught. There, standing barefoot on his porch, was a little girl. Her face was streaked with dirt. Her orange dress was torn and clinging to her small frame. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, sir. They hurt my mama. She's dying." Samuel froze. The world went silent again, except for her shivering breath. And in that moment, something deep inside the old rancher cracked. Friends, before we go on, if you believe in kindness, if you believe that ordinary people can still do extraordinary things, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what it means to be human. Samuel knelt in front of the girl. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Clara," she said, voice barely a whisper. He could smell the faint metallic scent of blood on her clothes. Her tiny hands were scraped raw. He didn't ask another question. He didn't need to. "Show me," he said, and scooped her into his arms. They set out through the fields, the sun rising slow behind them. Frost crunched under Samuel's boots as Clara pointed the way, her small hand trembling in the cold. They crossed the pasture, through broken fences and down a narrow dirt road that twisted toward the woods. With every step, Samuel's chest grew heavier. He had buried his heart years ago when he lost his wife in a car wreck. But now, holding this frightened child, that buried part of him began to stir again. When they reached the clearing, Samuel saw it. A shack, old, leaning, forgotten. Smoke leaked from a crooked pipe, and the door hung half open. He pushed it wide and stopped. On the dusty floor lay a woman, motionless. Her face was bruised and swollen, one eye purple, lips split. But when Clara ran to her and grabbed her hand, the woman's eyes fluttered open. "Clara," she whispered, weak but alive. Tears streamed down the child's face. "Mama, I found help." The woman tried to smile, but pain silenced her. Samuel didn't waste a second. He wrapped her gently in his jacket, lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing, and carried her back through the cold. The sun was climbing now, burning away the mist. Clara ran beside him, stumbling to keep up, her breath coming in sobs. By the time they reached the ranch, Samuel's arms were trembling, but he didn't stop. He laid the woman, her name he would later learn was Marin, on his bed and began to work. He cleaned her wounds, wrapped them, and whispered calm words though he wasn't sure she could hear. Years of tending cattle and patching up injuries had made him steady with his hands. But this was different. This was a life hanging in the balance. Clara held her mother's hand the whole time, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mama." Days passed. Samuel cooked simple meals, brought water, kept the fire burning through the cold nights, and slowly, color returned to Marin's face. When she could finally speak, she told him what happened. A group of men had shown up at her place. Men who thought she owed them money she didn't have. When she refused to give up her home, they beat her and left her for dead. Clara had run for help, and by some miracle had found Samuel. The old rancher listened in silence, but his eyes burned with quiet rage. He had seen cruelty before, but this was evil. Yet over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. The once empty ranch began to fill with life. Clara's laughter echoed across the yard as she chased chickens through the mud. Marin's soft singing drifted through the windows as she washed dishes or brushed Clara's hair. And Samuel, a man who hadn't smiled in years, found himself chuckling again, just watching them. He repaired the fence, built a swing for Clara from an old tire, and at night, the three of them would sit by the fire, a broken family slowly stitching itself together. But peace doesn't come easy. One morning, Samuel saw dust rising on the horizon. Horses. 3 of them. And on those horses rode the same men Marin had spoken of. They came up the road slow, sneering, confident. Marin froze when she saw them. Clara ran to Samuel, clutching his sleeve. The leader spat into the dirt. "We heard you're hiding our business, old man." Samuel stepped onto the porch, blocking the doorway. "Ain't your business anymore." The man laughed. "You think you can stop us?" Samuel's voice was calm, but it rolled like thunder. "If you want to touch that woman or that child, you'll have to go through me first." For a moment, the only sound was the wind whistling through the trees. The men looked at him, broad shoulders, steady eyes, that quiet kind of strength that doesn't bluff. And in that silence, they knew. He meant every word. They cursed, spat, and one by one turned their horses. The sound of hooves faded into the distance until there was nothing left but the whisper of the grass. Marin sank to her knees, tears of relief spilling down her face. Clara ran into Samuel's arms, and for the first time in years, he didn't pull away. That night, the 3 of them sat by the fire again. Marin's hand brushed Samuel's. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked at her, then at Clara asleep on the couch, and said softly, "Guess I needed someone to remind me what living feels like." They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. The next morning, the sun rose bright and golden over the fields. Clara ran barefoot through the frost-tipped grass, laughing as Samuel followed behind, pretending to chase her. Marin stood on the porch, smiling. Her face still marked by pain, but her heart lighter than it had been in years. Samuel paused beside them, the morning light spilling across his weathered face. He looked at the 2 souls who had stumbled into his life and realized something he hadn't felt in decades. Peace. He had spent half his life running from people, from love, from pain. But that knock on his door, that single moment of mercy, had given him everything he didn't know he needed. Family. A reason. A home. Friends. If this story has touched your heart, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness, answering a knock on the door, can change not just one life, but 3. And that's what shocked everyone the most.